All right. Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Absolutely. Always ready to jump into a new topic.
Well, today we're tackling something called Education for Sustainable Development.
ESD for short.
Yeah, ESD. Gotta love those acronyms, right?
Right.
But honestly, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, okay, another one of these.
Yeah.
Save the planet things.
Right.
But then I started reading through the research you sent me, and I
Yeah.
was like, wait a second, this is actually way more interesting and honestly more applicable to just like everyday life than I thought it would be.
Absolutely.
So for our listeners who maybe haven't come across this term before, what exactly are we talking about when we say education for sustainable development?
So it's really about equipping people with the knowledge,
Yeah.
the skills, the values, the attitudes to really contribute to a sustainable future.
Got it.
And it covers a wide range of topics like climate change, biodiversity, sustainable consumption. It's really quite broad.
Yeah, because when I think about sustainability, I immediately go to like the environment
Yeah.
and saving the planet, which is obviously hugely important.
Of course, yeah.
But you're saying it's actually kind of bigger than that?
It is. It's more holistic. It's about understanding the interconnectedness of environmental, social,
Okay.
and economic issues and how those things are all intertwined.
Interesting. So it's not just about like knowing the facts about climate change.
Right.
It's about how we can actually live and work
Uh,
and make decisions in a way that
Exactly. Yeah.
leads to a more sustainable future.
That's the goal.
Okay, I'm starting to get the bigger picture here, but one thing I'm curious about is how do you actually teach this stuff? I mean, some of these global issues are so complex.
Yeah.
How do you break them down in a way that makes sense, especially for younger learners?
That's a great question. And I think the beauty of ESD is that it's not about rote memorization.
Right.
It's not about feeding people facts and figures. It's much more about critical thinking and problem solving.
Got it.
So it encourages learners to really engage with these complex issues,
Yeah,
to analyze information, to think creatively about solutions.
I like that. I mean, even outside of like a strictly environmental context, those are really valuable skills.
Absolutely. These are life skills
Yeah.
that people can apply in any field, in any situation.
And speaking of real-world applications, you mentioned that ESD is linked to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah.
Now, those are those 17 goals, right?
Yeah.
Ending poverty, clean water, climate action, all that.
Exactly. Those are the big ones.
Okay, now, full disclosure to our listeners. I've seen those goals on posters and websites and stuff, but I always kind of felt like detached from them.
Yeah.
Like, it's great that world leaders are talking about this stuff,
Right.
but what can I, one person, actually do to make a dent in these huge global problems?
That's a very common feeling, and that's exactly where ESD comes in. It's about empowering individuals to take action, to realize that they can make a difference.
Okay, so it's about that connection between the global and the personal.
Exactly. And it's about showing people how their actions, even small ones, can contribute to those bigger goals.
So give me an example. What does that look like in practice?
Sure. One of the articles you sent over mentioned a school project
Oh, yeah.
where students design a community garden
Yes.
to address food insecurity in their neighborhood.
That's such a cool project.
And that's ESD in action. They identified a problem,
Okay.
they researched solutions, they worked together, they got their hands dirty, and they made a real impact on their community.
Love it. And, that also highlights how ESD isn't just about schools and classrooms.
It's just not at all, no.
It involves communities, businesses, governments.
Absolutely. It's about collaboration and partnerships. Everyone has a role to play.
Speaking of which, didn't one of your sources mention a local initiative right here in Listener's City region?
Yes, there's a fantastic program working on reducing textile waste.
Oh, the clothing one.
Yeah, they're creating a more circular economy for clothing by partnering with schools, businesses, and residents.
Whoa, okay, hold on. I had no idea this was happening right in our own backyard.
See, there's so much going on.
That is so cool. And for our listener who mentioned in their notes that they're really passionate about reducing their environmental impact,
Perfect.
this sounds like something they could actually get involved in.
Absolutely. There are so many opportunities to get involved in ESD initiatives locally. It doesn't have to be this big, grand thing.
I'm really seeing that.
Start small, find something you're passionate about, and connect with others who are working on similar things.
So I have to say, I started this deep dive feeling a little skeptical.
I get it.
Like, oh, another environmental thing.
Yeah,
But now I'm kind of energized. Like, there's actually a framework here
there is.
for not just understanding these problems,
Right.
but actually doing something about them.
Absolutely.
And that's pretty cool.
It is cool. And I think the key takeaway for everyone is that ESD is a journey. It's not about reaching some perfect end state.
Okay.
It's about continuously learning, questioning, adapting, and working together to create a more sustainable future. It's about becoming lifelong learners for sustainability.
I love that. Lifelong learners for sustainability. And to our listener, I hope this deep dive has given you some new things to think about.
I hope so too.
Maybe even spark some ideas for how you can bring ESD into your own life.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be a policymaker or a scientist to make a difference. Start small, find what resonates with you, and get involved. There's a place for everyone in this.
I completely agree.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into ESD. We'll see you next time for another fascinating topic.
Looking forward to it.